Friends, brothers, and sisters, wherever you're listening from, welcome to the Great Day with Meir podcast. And we are here with my main man, a good friend, the legend, David Yarus. Thank you so much for hosting us in your beautiful apartment overlooking, what is this, the Hudson?
Yes.
This is the Hudson, right? This is where the plane, like, literally just, like, when it landed, this has been right over here. It's a beautiful view. We got the city, we have the Washington, we have the Williamsburg Bridge on the left. It's a beautiful home. You really... I think you were telling me earlier that you decorated and interior designed this apartment to remind you of some vibes from Tulum, Mexico, huh?
Basically, I want to live in a jungle. And until I'm living in a jungle, I'm going to, try to bring the jungle vibe to me. So we got some plants, got some like low floor seating situation.
I like it.
But it's all in the pursuit of like living in nature.
Boom. Got that. Very nice. What? Let me ask you to jump right into it. Do you have a favorite quote? I ask you this because I'm in this room and I see there's so many different nice little tidbits, little words here and there, phrases. What comes to your mind when I ask you that question?
What comes to my mind is like probably my main mantra for the last like little while: possibility and abundance. So I don't know if it's as much a quote as two intentions that are meaningful to me.
Yeah.
But it's probably my favorite quote.
And what triggers that? What do you see for yourself for possibilities and what life?
It was a really powerful lesson that I received from a friend a few years ago in the desert in the morning, and the idea was that so many people and so much of life were conditioned to live through the lens of fear and scarcity. Am I good enough? Can I afford that? Will they like me? Will I be accepted? All of this is like scarcity. And if you could just reframe and process those same, moments through possibility and abundance, which, and then live into that, it opens up sort of a new way of living and an approach to life that feels really nice. So to me, it's a mindset through which I try to, live, decide, flow, act on, and it's been healthy and a really great addition, to my life.
Got it. So for you, I'm just trying to guess. Was this desert conversation taking place at Burning Man?
It was.
It was. I love it. I went to Burning Man myself like 3 years ago for the first time, my only time, and for me, and I'd love to hear your experience. It was incredible. First 2 days I went hard, no sleep. I didn't sleep. I just was overwhelmed by the people and the arts and the possibilities of this adult playground. And then I crashed for a little bit, and then I found my center, and it really turned out to be, as it's just the way the world should be. Radical acceptance and love. And I understood completely once we were leaving why people were saying, "Oh, we're going back to the default world." That terminology, because the level of just communication and warmth and understanding and the conversations that one has, as you were sharing, is just next level.
Truth. Yeah. And so for sure, for me, and also the Shabbat experience at Burning Man is like my energy source for Jewishness for the next year. Like tapping in at that moment, like in that night and that day, and like the experiences surrounding that there are just so powerful for me that they like truly like fill me up for like the energy that I take to like push forth like in Jewishly for the year to come.
Yeah. What is Shabbat for you? What's that connection?
I'm so happy you asked, because I had like a realization 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I think it was here. It was in this very space, and I was hosting a Shabbat dinner for some friends, and in thinking of how to introduce Shabbat for those who maybe weren't familiar, or even reframe it for how like what I feel and the meaning that I find in it today, it just came to me. But it was like, oh, no wonder I like Shabbat so much, because really it is literally the holiday of chill. Like it is literally celebrating like just chilling the F out, relaxing, and just being present. And it's a holiday and like a holiness around that. So what is it to me? It's, sacred presence of like chilling and being in the moment with people you love, not distracted, and just like being is what it is to me. And I love sharing and experiencing that with friends, family, and, new and old. Yeah.
Yeah, and you host. You mentioned. I see that you have the Shabbat candles and displayed. So you host Shabbat dinners and events here in your own apartment.
Here, often, sometimes at the office, just because it could fit more space.
Yeah.
For the last few years, it was more at the office, but I realized in thinking about it around the New Year this year that I was hosting a good amount of Shabbats, but they were maybe between like 25 and 30 people. And then at the end of it, I felt like exhausted, and I didn't feel like I was able to like meaningfully connect with people on an individual or on like a deep level, because there were so many people that I was like making sure everyone was good and popping here and popping there. Yeah. And so my intention with Shabbat gathering for this year was to have smaller, more intimate, groups, so that we could really connect and go deeper.
Yeah, that's amazing. Has Shabbat changed much from you celebrating Shabbat as a child growing up in your home? What was Shabbat for you in that sense, and what was Judaism for you in that sense growing up?
Yeah, it's been an interesting Jewish journey. Yeah. Basically, I grew up, my parents became more observant when I was in like 6, when I was in kindergarten. So I went from not keeping anything and doing all of the things, and then like suddenly becoming kosher and Shomer Shabbat and sort of, when I was 6, 7, 8, I think so, maybe. And like going with that for a while, although not fully understanding it, but it now just sort of being how we did and how I did, I guess, indirectly or directly. And then my extended family like is not observant or kosher, and so I remember, I don't know what age, but like young, I was out with all my cousins, and they were all ordering like something that wasn't kosher. I was like, why am I not doing that? So then I went off on my sort of own journey, not really keeping much. I went to Jewish day school in Miami, but I applied to Catholic prep school in Washington, D.C. and went junior and senior year. And so I had this powerful Jewish identity shift from in Miami, where I lived in a pretty Jewish community, both like where I lived, who I hung out with, where I went to school. Everyone was Jewish, and almost Jewish identity or your Jewish practice was like what do you do? Like how much do you keep? Do you do this? Do you do that?
It's like a sort of a checklist.
But in DC, when I was pretty much the only Jewish person that my friends knew or hung out with or whatever, it became like Billboard Jew. So it wasn't like keeping this or that. It's like whatever you do, like this is what Jewish people do.
Oh, okay.
And so it shifted the way that I understood Jewish identity to like, wow, this is some responsibility. I need to make sure that I like hold it out for my people.
Yeah.
But anyway, so then and ever since then it ebbed and flowed. I moved to New York. I went to yeshiva in Israel for a few summers. Mayonot. I was drawn to Hasidus in college, so that kind of brought me back in with some renewed interest. And it's continued to evolve.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you growing up, would you say you were a ladies' man?
Oh no, I'd say I was like some like skinny white Jewish kid,
So I mean, so for seeing that, like growing up, I mean, in high school, you were like perhaps like the typical quote unquote like skinny. Would you say geekish type of? Were you involved in tech at all?
It's a little harsh, bro.
Okay, easy.
Involved in tech. I mean, I've always loved technology. I feel like growing up though, tech as we know it or talk about it really started, becoming more maybe when I was in college, like a more present thing. But I was always very early active on using tools. So in Miami, I started bringing people together through parties. It was like kind of like my first foray into, I guess, community building. It happened organically. It was sophomore year of high school. I went to the senior year graduation party from like the Jewish day school that I went to. And I just like witnessed the business model of the senior, like this group of like a few seniors bringing hundreds of people together, renting this place, like making money. And I was like, this looks awesome. And teamed up with Deanna Paul, who I carpooled to school with when we were, I think, 14 or 15. We rented out a venue in Miami Beach, and we like threw this party. And ever since then, I like learned my love of bringing people together, creating like sort of the energy in space, like when you just feel like the vibration of the room based on like all the magic and connection and love and friendship and happening there. Like I love that. I love that feeling. I feel like most alive in those beautiful connected moments. So from there, I lost how we got into it. That's how we got into that.
Yeah, no, we went into it because we were talking about how you were in high school and, getting to tech, DC.
Oh, tech. Got it. So I've always loved bringing people together, and it's come to life throughout, mostly originally in events, starting in Miami, then also in college. And early on, to fill up like these rooms, my first company, in school was called The College Party. And the idea was to have a network of parties that were like only for college students. So like everyone was in the same boat as you, the same, and it in all different types of experiences or places around. In this case, it was around like the East Coast. And to fill up the rooms, we would basically have different people at different campuses that we would pull together to, leverage their networks, and social. And anyways, all of this was word of mouth marketing without me knowing it. It's what I guess is referred to as word of mouth or ambassador or advocacy marketing. And then early on, we were using social media when Facebook came out. Before there were like brand pages, or we were using it to leverage social networks to bring people together.
Got it.
So I guess I was in tech early from a marketing social perspective. Yeah.
Right. So is it safe to say that was this like instilled ideas of you this love to bring people together, to build communities, to build connections? Did it just sort of make sense for you to flow into this creation of JSwipe, to be part of something that is all about connecting people?
It's funny because it wasn't ever planned, and I would have never thought, but it makes, like, in reflecting and thinking about it, for sure it makes sense. It definitely is an evolution in bringing people together, and connection and magic and love, and it's, I love that about it. We are aligned in that way.
Yeah. How many to date? How many people have gotten married through the app?
It's a funny, so thousands.
Yeah,
thousands, which is beautiful. So mazel tov to all.
Yeah, you're going straight to bro. Was it 3 to heven? I mean, this guy's you and your grandchildren, great-grandchildren.
I don't know. It maybe just like balances out for all like the ridiculousness in my life.
Okay.
But so thousands of people have gotten married, but it's a funny thing because it's not like a typical business, right? Most business models are you create a product and you get community members or consumers to love your brand, that they use you forever,
right?
Or they you whatever it is. And in dating, it's the opposite. We're successful if you delete us, right? Okay. Like if you find someone, like we don't want you back, because if you come back, ultimately we're looking for you to find love and find the person you're looking for. And in that, we don't always know who, like, not everyone reports, but if they found love, if they were successful through it. We just on February 14th, on Valentine's Day this year, launched a new thing though, which is really fun. We for years have had people, success stories, request from us once they got engaged or married or for an anniversary, request their like chat history, like their earliest conversations, which are always hilarious in one way, shape, or form. Like they're either ridiculous or funny or cute or just all the things. But for years we weren't able to give it out because of the privacy policy, how it was. But we just launched something called It Started with JSwipe, which is basically a tool that people can request their chat history and like download it and relive it. And it's been really beautiful and really fun. We've had hundreds of new couples that we didn't know, come out of the woodwork, share that with us, and it's really special. Yeah.
So with JSwipe, it's bringing people together, people getting married through it, all these connections. At the same time, do you find that, and there's been some arguments and some questions around JSwipe, that it's not really necessarily focused on marriage and long-term commitment, but rather it's like the Jewish Tinder? And what do you think about that? Is there? So people often ask, like, what is the intention of the community?
Sure. The truth is, I believe it is a tool. It's like a connection tool for whatever it is you're seeking. So, are there people who are looking specifically for, like, to get married? For sure, lots, and I think you see that in the fact that many have. Mm-hmm. Are there people looking for, like, friends or traveling or new networks and new communities they move to? Also, yes. Are there people looking for fun, whatever that means to them? I'm sure also yes. But that's not unlike, I feel like, the general dating experience, at least in New York City, today.
Yeah.
I'm all for people, like, being fully expressed with what it is they are looking for. So for someone who's looking for this or that, like, to share that, people to be their authentic, fullest selves in dating encounters or whatever, or even on their profile if it's that important to them. And I also think that if we put out a specific intention, either as an app, we wouldn't do like overarching. But if we let some people have requested, for example, the ability to say, what you're looking for. I'm looking for this. I'm looking for marriage. I'm looking for fun.
Short-term,
whatever. Long-term. It's a valid thought process. The kicker is, I feel like so many of the people who ended up getting married might, you never know, right? Maybe they're looking for this, but they meet their person, and like I wouldn't want it to be like limiting. I would want to, if anything, like help people, like help expand people's possibilities. So it's a really interesting, thought process, but it's a tool for whatever people are looking for, and I support their full expression of that in finding who they're, to call in someone that fits what they, their dream.
Yeah. People, I posted before on social, on my Instagram, that I was going to be interviewing you, and one person asked, there's Orthodox, there's ultra-Orthodox, there's Reform, there's all these different types of categories and, sects of Jews, but there's no Chabad, or there's no, yeshivish. Is that something that is too micro, or is that how?
It's a great question, because it's something we think a lot about. Something that's been really unusual and unique with JSwipe as an experience is that we were very intentional throughout, but also the fact that it ended up being really serving to pretty much all, or at least most, Jewish communities, or, and in that, it's important to us that we are always sort of addressing all. We wouldn't want to do something that would either offend or off-put the other, and it's super tricky. So with the majority of our audience identifying as, when you sign up through the app, as, quote, just Jewish, I wouldn't want it to then be this long list of things that they're selecting or not selecting, because that really is addressing and helping a subsect of our broader audience. And I wouldn't want it to offend or off-put someone that I'm not I don't want anyone to feel bad about their Jewishness in whatever it is. I think it's beautiful and full and whole in their exact experience, and so it's such a tricky balance,
right, exactly. And also it may open up new things, like you said, create possibilities for someone who perhaps may think that they want a certain thing, but may come across somebody who maybe doesn't fit the exact bill that they thought they may have heard when they were a child. But,
for sure.
And open up.
So it's an important question, and definitely something we think about. And I recently we had a focus group at the office that evolved that a little bit, but which basically someone's suggestion was whether it's your denomination or how you identify, or whether it's your kosher yes or no, which is obviously also there's so much more than yes or no, but sure. It's tricky. Add a button for people to click, but flexible in terms of who they're looking for. So it's I'm open, but I'm open, which currently doesn't allow based on its sort of finite, you turn on or off the different, denominations.
Right.
But anyways, I appreciate the person who brought it up, because it's something that we think a lot about.
Yeah, totally. And then of course there's number one question, right? There's this JSwipe. It's this dating app to help people connect. And yet one of the founders of JSwipe is single.
I would say it's complicated. And which is funny, because when Facebook first came out back in the day, and in their relationship status options, it was this, that, the other. It's complicated. I'm like, who in the world would ever use it's complicated?
Right.
But I think, click, it's complicated.
It's complicated.
And let's leave it there.
Okay, copy. Picking up what we're putting down. With an app like JSwipe, and this could really apply to any type of dating app, do you find that the intention is connection, but through this way of connecting, we're really truly disconnecting?
I mean, it's a super important topic by and large for our generation, not just with dating, but with technology overall.
Absolutely.
Right, we're more, quote, connected digitally than ever before, but also if you look at the loneliness index, which I learned recently is a thing, where they do a study of connection, loneliness, feelings in the States. As a nation, we're also the loneliest we've ever been, right? So all of this connectivity is definitely taking a toll and hurting us in ways that we're maybe somewhat becoming more aware of, but also subconscious not aware of. And as that relates to dating, I think it's important we address it in the pros and the cons. I think dating apps overall have helped a lot in potential, in possibility, in meeting prospects, right? For example, I moved to New York City in 2010 for a dream job and to meet a nice Jewish girl. And I moved to the Upper West Side because I was told that that's where they all lived. Right. And I did all the things to look and meet, to try to meet someone. And first of all, it was pretty powerfully socially uncomfortable for me in different ways at different times. And after 2, 3, or 4 years of living there, there was maybe 5 tops that I wanted to meet, and maybe 2 or 3 that I actually did or went on dates with or whatever. And that juxtaposed to now that we could be in our pajamas anywhere, watching Netflix and theoretically swiping through anyone in your city, single and open, and or Jewishly anyone in the world on JSwipe, because you could filter locally or city specific or worldwide. What that does for possibility is insane. It's exponentially increases one's possibility or pool of meeting someone great. And in that, it's done a lot of challenging, things as well, because that expansive pool of possibility, it has created this idea of the paradox of choice, right? Which is the psychological principle that the more options one has, this is not about dating, but it applies to dating.
Sure.
The more options one has, the harder it is for them to choose. And the more likely they are to regret the choice that they made after choosing. And we're living in a very confusing, complex, time for, modern dating. But dating apps have definitely, helped accelerate this, paradox of choice that people are in. And I think it's both our, as the industry's responsibility to like have that top of mind. So when we're, business planning and thinking of what's next or new features, optimize towards love, right? Like that's ultimately what we're here for. That's why we exist. That's, what people use these apps for. And like, we need to remember that that's the end goal, end game, and really build towards that, not, towards, deeper engagement or more all other things that aren't, that at least led by that intention. And I think on the individual to practice like healthy, habits that will help them call in whatever it is they are looking for.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's a recent Jewish dating app, right? Forge, that's coming out, and or it's already out there. And it's interesting that you're talking about what you're saying about having all these incredible choices, so many choices, possibilities that make us sort of go backwards in our process of creating and choosing. And if choosing, we regret it. That they only allow once a certain amount of swipes per day, and if you connect with somebody, that's the only person you could talk to while you're in communication. Then once you let go of that, if you do, then the pool opens up again. So I think this is another maybe perhaps clever way to try to like have people stay focused and be present with the person they're talking to instead of having, let's say, 21 open different type of conversations.
True.
Yeah.
I feel that a couple of us in the game are thinking about addressing that issue in different ways, and in different apps are introducing like cool features that help towards focus and finding that love and not finding more options. People don't need more options.
Right.
They need the offline, experiences with people that they're interested in to, potentially be their person.
Yeah, absolutely. So where do you see the dating world? Where do you see that going? What do you see the next steps when it comes to the dating app and the online type of dating?
It's an interesting question. At a high level, I mean, there's talk when you go to like the trade shows or the conferences about like virtual reality. It's all interesting,
yeah.
But like I feel like day-to-day mass adoption use of maybe wearing goggles to go on a speed date. Like we're so far from that being like formally, like anywhere close to norm. That really, for me, the most important message is the idea that the next wave of the innovation that needs to happen in the space isn't necessarily new apps or isn't like new connections. It's about taking responsibility, accountability, and ownership over helping people find that love. Mm-hmm. So addressing that in new ways, optimizing towards like offline experiences and encounters with new people. And solving that is what I believe should be the next wave of online dating, which ultimately is offline dating, right? Like at the end of the day, I don't think anyone believes that you'll get, if you're looking for the one, that you're going to like meet, text, and get married through only texting, right? The goal is to get you offline. The goal is to have the in-person encounter where you can really, where the magic happens. We just want to get you there in an effective, fun, efficient way.
Got the world of JSwipe. Take me back to the times when you moved to New York. I know you initially got involved with Mr. Youth. Tell me about that story and how it progresses till today.
The story's a fun one. At a high level, I was running out of college in Boston my next business after the college party called Buzz University. And Buzz University was a marketing agency helping brands connect with college students at the time. And after spending a summer in Israel, I went to my first conference as like a graduate. And it was the Word of Mouth Marketing Association in Vegas. They have this annual conference. I tried to volunteer, and there was no volunteering. And I just came from Israel where I was staying at hostels. So I was like, I got it. I'm going to stay at the Sin City Hostel in Las Vegas. It was a weird experience. Also my first time in Vegas. But so I could go to this conference. And I get there, and I'm like the youngest one in the room by half. And they found it, and I had no agenda other than to learn and grow and take in and meet and just like open-eyed wonder of being
what's
there.
out there.
And through that experience, people love that I wasn't trying to sell them something, like because at conferences it's often so many people trying to like hustle something, but I was just truly being there to like learn and grow. And B, I met like this dream company, and then I tweeted at one of the founders afterwards. And they were like, yeah, let me know the next time you're in New York. And I was like, oh, that's going to be tomorrow. And I ended up coming in and spending the next 4 years there, like, going like deep, giving my fullest like everything to this, company, to the team, to the projects, to the experience. And it was really powerful for me. And I learned a lot and I grew a lot. And then towards the end of that, I started for fun on the weekends helping Jewish organizations with social media. And it started because one of the partners in that company had a friend who said she was doing something in the Jewish world, and, would I meet her to talk about social media? And I was like, oh, sure. And again, like, no agenda, no plan, like, for fun, went into it, helped these people, and it like had a profound impact on everything that they were doing. And I was like, whoa. And she's like, you should talk to the Israeli consulate. I was like, okay. So I went and had that conversation. They're like, well, you should train our consulates, our advocates around like 10 cities. And I was like, sure, okay. Like, again, all just flow.
Right.
Also pro bono, like, I was just doing it because, like, I got pleasure out of sharing like things that I had learned with organizations or people who like were able to implement, and seeing that it was, having an impact.
Sure.
Anyway, so it was kind of like domino effect, and ultimately ended up doing the marketing, the creative, and the social media for Birthright. And that was our first client at Millennial, and still to this day is our, like, sort of deepest partnership, and really, really comprehensive and exciting and, challenging in the best ways, project. And so now Millennial is basically a creative and digital shop. We're based in Brooklyn. But I've had a life sort of alignment focus shift over the last year.
Oh, do share.
Yeah. Basically, I realized that I was no longer inspired by the idea of like building an agency, which years before was like it made so much sense, and it was the next step, and I was so excited about it, and then found in the process and experience of it, like, it was not my bliss. And a year and a half ago, I started I was at this conference in LA, and whatever triggered, I was just starting all weekend long. People were like, so how you doing? Catch me up. And I was, instead of wanting to catch them up on what I was working on, I just started asking the question of like, bliss. Like, it was like the theme for my weekend for some reason. And I was like, are you following your bliss? Like, what does life look like to follow your bliss? What is my bliss? And just allowing myself to ask these questions, and not just like Insta story, inspo post about it, but like actually challenge myself on them. And through some like inner work and thinking, over the last year, I've been reorienting towards like allowing myself to more fully, powerfully follow my bliss, and still question and explore what it is that even is. But in doing that, I basically redesigned my day-to-day experience, redesigned like what I'm working on, how I'm exerting my energy, and the team, I guess, and structure of Millennial, to focus on, it was basically a year of shedding for me, and it was the projects and the that I was not passionate about, to really allow myself to focus, laser focus on things that are directly in line with, purpose and passion and interest and excitement and all of these things. And in order to create some new space for new creation, which I'm really excited about.
Wow, incredible. Anything you could share with us, something fresh that you're building in your head about creation?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot, right? And I'm excited for it. At a high level, and it's funny because I would never again have expected this to be like the main theme.
Sure.
But it's an ecosystem of projects, some for-profit, some non-profit, that are all in and around the modern or the millennial Jewish experience. And it's I feel like it's such like a rich topic to explore. I guess found myself like having fun, and finding meaning and purpose, in that exploration. And it's essentially, the first one is basically about bringing together modern Jewish creators in all different ways. People who are actively currently thinking about like, what does the future of Judaism look like? What do we stand for? What do we need? What if anything, do we stand against or not? And having dialogue, like real critical, authentic dialogue around that. Because I found that to be a little bit sort of danced around or missing in what I see as being like the global convenings of the Jewish world. And and it's a conversation we need to be talking about,
Sure.
if we care about it, and it's starting like yesterday. And so lots of it is about bringing that together and then bringing innovation, across different areas of the Jewish experience.
What do millennials want? Does that question change between millennials in general and Jewish millennials? Could that answer be answered in total?
Well, I'm sure there's some, there's the first thing I'll say is one of the things I've been struggling with, that my friend Jules recently on a trip to India to explore the Jewish community of India on the bus while we were jamming about like new thinking, introduced me to some really powerful language that helped me articulate like a core struggle for me over the last little while. But I was telling him that so personally, I first identify as a human. Then as a universalist, which to me means like I believe that my truth is as true in this world as like that person's truth to them, and that they're both wholly, true to each of us, and in the same way.
Whole perfect and complete.
And then hashtag Jewish, or like Jewish, and like asterisk, like exploring what that even means to me. And in that, like, I do so much work. So much of what I give most of myself to is to the Jewish world and to like the future of the Jewish experience, of the millennial Jewish experience. And yet there's this like almost like inner conflict that like, first and foremost, I feel like I'm like a universalist and human. And so and basically he gave me language. He's like, it sounds like you're struggling with the role of particularism in universalism. And I was like, ooh, yeah, dog. Like, that's exactly it. Boom. Like, what is my role as a particular? So, to your question of our Jewish millennials, is there similar? Of course, I'm sure there's similarities because we're all millennials, and I'm sure there's particulars that are specific to the audience. But depending on what you're asking, first of all, by and large, not just Jewish, but millennials overall are the least like traditionally religious generation in recent generations, and much more quote spiritual,
right?
Which I can say I feel too, for sure. And we have the ability now through, either technology or through sort of just an openness and a connection of our generation to find pockets of meaning and connection and vulnerability and community in all different ways. For someone that might be Soul Cycle, for someone that might be something called Medi Club that meets once a month in New York City to like bring, young, modern, mindful people who meditate together. And there's hundreds of people, and like there's pockets of communities forming everywhere, replacing or at least filling the space that what our parents and grandparents' generations, filled with, I guess, religion, to bring that community together, to give you fulfillment, to give you connection and vulnerability. And so what do millennials want? I think authenticity, right? People want realness, right? We want unfiltered realness, which is funny because everyone's looking through Instagram's feeds of like filtered, like not.
That's right.
Connection, freedom, flexibility, not much commitment, so there's universal and particular, elements of that. But I think about a year ago, I started speaking. I think I just found my truth more, and at least as it relates to my like Jewish journey. And instead of giving like the softball answers that I feel like oftentimes are asked, like, why is it important to marry someone Jewish? Or all, I know all of the things that I've been like conditioned and taught to say or think, but like instead of just sharing that, actually just tapping into and sharing like my confusion, struggle, and journey, and like my processing of this, and in my starting to share that, which was definitely more of my truth. It's been really powerful because people have started to be way more, engaged and responsive about how this is something that they're grappling with also, and let's talk about it. And it's really triggered some rich dialogue.
Yeah, and opens up incredible conversations you'll never have if you just stick to the script of just like saying, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be saying, or this is what, what will be the reaction if I say something otherwise. So completely understand what that looks like for sure. I see. I asked you this before earlier. I said we're gonna say it for the podcast. I see you're wearing some sort of necklace. I don't know the proper English for what it's called, but there's like what is it? What am I looking at right now? What is it called?
So there's so many. It's so funny because like it's very special to me, and it's funny because there's like so many ways to answer this question. So we'll start with literal. Literally, what are they? They are called palms. They are from Oaxaca, Mexico. They are brought here by a really, really, really special group of these two women, Kitsia and Yo-Yo, who have let's call it a curated global boutique of artisanal crafts from countries where they find like the local artisan or the local artist who maybe has like a store in Oaxaca that sells a couple hundred a year, meets the people, connects, and then brings them back here in places like orders thousands of them. So powerfully changing like sort of the economics in these local communities and helping them scale, and also bringing back their stories and their pieces and sharing their stories here with our friends and extended community. So I love that about them.
It's beautiful.
To me, they're almost like how people have like essential oil diffusers, right?
Yes.
To me, it's like just a happiness diffuser, right? Like I wear them at this point pretty much every day. I love them, and like I started originally, I think I started wearing them pretty quickly every day, but like I wore them like to like serious meetings or like serious conferences or like all these Jewish conferences. They're pretty serious, or at least like it's a little stiff, right? And I wore them to like just like make light of it a little bit, to like bring some playfulness, some comfort, some like casual energy into the space, because it helped me be more comfortable at least. And I think it also started some like it just brought a different sort of element and energy into the room. So I use it to kind of like cut stiffness a little bit. And also it's funny because people at these like Jewish events will be like, is that your talit? And I'm like first I say yeah, I was like yes, yeah, but no, obviously. So they just make me happy.
That's beautiful. Yeah, it's so beautiful, and it's also something I feel like what perhaps even millennials. I feel like right now that millennials bring in and believe in. I think even like J.P. Morgan or one of these top big banks or investment banks just mentioned how they're gonna like start spreading throughout their offices casual clothing day. More casual clothing, more chill, less suits.
I mean, that makes me think about like what your question of what millennials want. At least I know what I and most of the people I work with, and is to like just be able to work and be in our own way, right? Yeah. We want to be empowered, we want to be collaborative.
Self-expression.
Like, the idea of, the way that we at this work is at Millennial is like, you do you how you do you, just crush it, right? Like if you want to wear polka dotted, mind you, it's the creative, space, it's, so maybe it's a little more, tolerated there, but like I fully support that being anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, when you show up to a place where, let's say, everybody's wearing suits and whatnot, you show up the way you are, fantastic. I feel like that's sort of like my onesie. I wear onesies, and I have like 14 of them. I rock them out in the streets when I do different types of videos. And for me, it helps me tap into my inner child. And it helps people just when I wear it and people look at me, no matter what age, child to adult and seniors, they look and they just smile. It's ridiculous and it's fun. It brings them back to perhaps certain places in their lives.
It's so funny you say that, because I realize only right now in this moment that this hat, which was out of my life for years, maybe 3 or 4 years, was my first artifact like that. And it was tying back the stories all together. When I started doing this like 10-week tour of Israeli consulates, it was right after, this is a company hat from Mr. Youth, which became MRY. They gave them out. And I don't know why, but it just became like everyday gear. And I got such great like pleasure out of being in a serious situation, like training these local consulate communities, but indoors, and wearing it like this, like giving them like real talk, serious, like nonstop 2-hour like social media boot camp, but like looking a little ridiculous. And it was just so fun for me. I agree, tapping into your inner child, bro. And so it's funny that in this moment I'm wearing both of my favorite artifacts like
fantastic.
that.
And listen, I gotta say, just like throughout this whole conversation, throughout the whole day, you do project an incredible fun, down to earth energy, and it's just a really breath of fresh air to be around. So
blessings, bro. I appreciate that.
Thank you. So before coming here, sitting down with you, I was doing a little minimal research online, and I came across in one of your bios you wrote that you're exploring the interplay of presence and hustle. I love that poetic way of expressing, how you're expressing and practicing balance. So how do you do that you're a man of, just you're surrounded by social media, it's your business, it's everything that, it seems like everything that you're involved with. And also for myself, I could also include myself, and I think that many people are listening, that social media being the now and the filters and all that life is so much that we're living in. How do you balance that life and also be present in the now and practice through mindfulness that you're living that lifestyle? So
bro,
any tips?
It's first thing I'll say is it's a struggle, no doubt, right? Like, struggle is real. I definitely spend way too much time on social media. I'm scared to look at screen time, even though I know it's so important to do, and especially because my work is wrapped up in being on and understanding the platforms. It's like, it's so, it's a lot. So it's something that I definitely, think about and grapple with ongoing. I feel like the truth is it might be like a not as much of a physical practice, but more of a sort of a maybe spiritual mindset, which is just deep surrender and, belief or trust in both, it's all going to be good. Like, no matter what happens, it's all going to be good. Blessings, hashtag blessings. So we'll talk about hashtag blessings. I want to reclaim hashtag blessed.
Yeah.
Because,
you definitely dropped the word blessed a lot.
Let's take a quick aside on this one real quick.
Let's do it.
So the aside is that, like, one day I felt real good, and I don't remember what it was, and I wanted to post this story, and I was like, I felt really great, and like felt like such gratitude that I wanted to like post with like hashtag blessed. And then I was like, oh no, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be hashtag blessed person. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what a shame that we have like publicly like shamed hashtag blessed, or like when in fact it's just people, or when it could be people expressing like their feeling of blessing and gratitude. So I if you choose to accept, let's reclaim hashtag blessed so people share their blessings more, because I think it's a beautiful thing to like live in a state of like awareness to blessing.
Boom. You got me on board. Stay tuned for hashtag blessed. I'll be authentic with it. So when you see it on my story,
okay. And so I don't remember the first topic.
Got it. So bring it back to you were saying how the struggle is real when it comes to being the world of social media. But
so
also
I think it's the idea that in something really clicked maybe 2 years ago, because especially in the world of entrepreneurship and surrounded by amazing people who I love and inspire me, who are like moving so fast, like there was always this like feeling of like self-imposed pressure to like work harder, go faster, like you're not there yet. There's always more to, which I've used I think throughout life as like a motivating force, like to push through and get like I don't know, work harder. But it was always taking me out of the present moment. And then there was this one day that I realized, I was like, wait a second, like I love life right now. Like I love my friends, I love my family, I love what's happening, I love the journey, I guess. Like there are ups, there's are down, but like right now is perfect. And so there's taking myself out of this like expected place to be. I used to refer to it as the gap, where like I believe in my potential, and then I'm familiar with like the currently actualized level of potential, and like I would always get so mad about this gap. Like there was like I didn't have self-love at this time, and still because I was like I should be doing more right now. And it was just not like, it was not a happy or good place to be. And so releasing myself from that, embracing the presence, the idea that like it's all gonna be good, and whatever happens like is like, we got this, the world will show up for me, is I guess how I sort of deal with the presence of interplay and hustle. I'm also, thank God, like very easily I'm able to like turn off at the end of the day, or if I'm like worrying about this all day, like, and I get home, like instead of bringing that home, I'm able to like sort of switch wavelength and just like kick it for a little bit. And one of the most powerful new additions into my life as it relates to, I guess, wellness or mindfulness is men's work. Or basically, I have a weekly men's group. We meet every Tuesday, and it's just been.
What is that?
It's so there's over the last year or two, there's a lot of momentum or movement around men's work. What is it? It's basically structures and experiences that allow men to more comfortably like tap into and express their feelings. Okay. And this one, the way that I encounter it is it's a weekly group with 8 or 9 guys. We meet at different friends' houses each week. And there's a sort of a structure that we go around, but it's all about tapping into like where you're at in that moment right now. What's real for you? Feeling in that moment. So not a story like, well, I got you're automatically in story. Like, what are you feeling right now? Sadness or happiness or joy or love, whatever it is, and like holding space as a group for like that man to like feel fully into that and like help them explore. It's no solving. One of the rules is there's no solutions, because we're always in the state of solution. Like, well, maybe that's not it. Right. It's about just holding space for them to be fully there, right there, like however they are and who they are in that moment.
So pretty much men's work is like redefining what masculinity has been for us men and what the world says for all these years.
For sure. I mean, it's definitely, actively working against the idea of toxic masculinity, no doubt. Yeah.
Man up. Men don't cry. Men don't show their feelings.
This is all about feelings, know?
Right.
So for sure. 2 things for people who are curious about checking it out. One of them is a friend who runs the group that I'm in every Tuesday night started something called Junto. I think it's We Junto on Insta, and it's basically like a weekend retreat for about 18, 20 guys like upstate to like go deep on like this for like extended period of time, like 2 days, with some like outdoor, some like it's beautiful. And there's also an organization called Everyman, which is, I think this one of the main conveners of the curriculum or the sort of way about popping up these men's circles around the world now.
Amazing. That's incredible. I do find that there's a lot more awareness or a lot more. I having conversations with like kids. I go to public speaking at times at schools and different organizations, and like these young kids, 16, 17-year-olds. No offense, 16, 17-year-olds, if you think you're grown up, but they're like showing up and they're like asking me such amazing questions about like who they are, what they are, questioning their identity or just being so much more aware of just the outside world and where they fall into and where they play into it. So it's quite amazing. I think a lot has to do with people like yourself and with certain players and certain influencers who are going out and sharing these messages. And of course, with a lot more information accessible, these are the kind of conversations that I try to know for myself, bring to light and bring to life. And that's the kind of stuff I want to project and share with the world. So that's really amazing. To go back, do you think dating apps, Jewish dating apps particularly, are helping or only encouraging like the whole quote-unquote shidduch crisis?
Ooh. So it's interesting because I want to first say that I might not be ironically, the subject matter expert on the shidduch crisis, specifically as defined. Mm-hmm. But it was asked to me once before, and to be totally honest, it actually was in a public, it was at some speaking engagement, and it was maybe one of the only and definitely like the heaviest thing that I answered, and then I felt like oof after I answered it. It's one of the only experiences like that I could remember. I felt a little bad about my answer, but maybe I'll share it again, because it's basically this idea that like I feel like my first question is, to whom is there a shidduch crisis? Is it to the community at large? Is it to the parents and grandparents? Is it to the individual themselves? And if the individual themselves, what degree of that is fully their internal versus their perceived pressure and external forces making it a shidduch crisis? Right? Like if we're universally, people are getting married later. People are, taking longer, exploring more of who they are. All of these things are happening across the board. It seems natural that that's happening right now. I hate to place language on it like a crisis for something that for everyone else in the world, it's just a new way of experiencing. So that's a very interesting point of view. I hear what you're saying, because I mean, in quote unquote, me being single, 29 years old, in the community that I come from, it's a bit abnormal, and I'm only feeding into this crisis and such. But at the same time, if someone approached me, and the conversations people come over to you, oh, you're 29, and the first kind of thing is like, oh, you must find somebody, oh, I know somebody for you, as if like something's wrong or bad or I'm depressed or sad, which I feel totally full, and complete and great. I'm so fortunate to have been able to learn and continue to grow and find myself through my 20s, and still open to perhaps meeting that right person when that happens. So it's an interesting take. That is this just being opposed and being talked about constantly, and who's in the conversation, right? Is it just the shidduchim, the shatchanim? Is it just the matchmakers? Is it just the parents? And are they trickling that kind of fear and anxiety down to this millennial target? And what is it rooted in? Like, why is it like all of these things that I can't just sort of buy.
Well, perhaps because maybe girls, have a certain, biological clock, and and there's a certain amount of time they can have kids, and so if the older they get, then and so if men maybe took less time dating, and this, and I don't know all the arguments.
Understandable.
True, yeah. But that's I like that angle and point of view. So I really love what you shared about the shidduch crises and such, and being in the world of dating and JSwipe, which is I would say modern dating. What are some tips you can share about this whole world that we find ourselves when it comes to modern dating?
First thing I would share is like solidarity for the people in it and experiencing it and going through it, and because it ain't easy, and it's important, right? Yes. So first, let's feel for the experience for the people. I'd say the three most important things when people ask, like, so what do you think about it? I would say first is be radically clear with yourself and aware and honest about what it is you're looking for, right? Like, don't say that you're trying to find the person and then your person, and then be like texting your exes and like hooking up on whatever these things that are happening. Like, that's, oh, by the way, that's totally okay if that's what you're looking for, but really have just an honest dialogue with yourself, or check in with like, what truly are you looking for in that moment? First thing, radical clarity.
Yeah.
Then clear space, right? Because like right now it's a funny time, but people are going on multiple dates a week with different people. People are so confused. It's hard to keep track of like, like how you as a being actually connect with this other person if you're going on all these dates and meeting all these people and mixing up conversations or having the same conversation over and over again. And so clear space for it. And that could look different for everyone, whether it's stopping, communication with past, romance or love, whether it's, going on less dates, like so that you could really be fully there and have that clarity. So first be, clear with yourself about what it is you're looking for, then make space to call that person in with being radically clear. And then dive in, right? Head first, like across life, but also in love. Magic doesn't happen from the comfort zone, right? Like it's scary to be vulnerable, but like in big risk is big reward. Like you gotta give yourself to it. So many people, that I talk to say that they're going on so many dates and everyone's so guarded or protecting, and it's like layers of self-defense mechanisms so they don't get hurt. But in creating that space, you're also creating a barrier of to yourself and to actually lean in and experience the magic of the love or the romance that you're ultimately looking for. So dive in, it'll be scary, and be fully you, right? Like be whoever you are in your fullest, you, because you want someone who loves you for that. Not some people report like, basically we just did a study, the JSwipe love study. And
okay.
We very, very, very excited about it. We surveyed like thousands of people about the state of Jewish, the state of dating, and the state of Jewish dating. So I'll come back to you with findings, and we can have a follow-up podcast. But basically, people report that like people are going on dates and presenting, or people are being presented who you think the other person wants you to be, rather than just being fully like comfortable, self-expressed. So be expressed, dive in. It's scary. Be vulnerable, clear space, and have radical clarity about what it is you're looking for.
Those are just so like quote unquote simple ideas, yet you don't hear so much about that because I feel like that's the awareness that you're talking about. Like when you're in that flow, you're in that hamster wheel of like just boom, 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 showing up for dates, having the same conversation. Something's off. You feel like, what's wrong with me? Why am I not connecting? Why am I not finding someone? And because you're in it, and I mean that's when you shed some light on that, you're like, whoa, breathe for a second, see the patterns that you're living through, see what the constant habits that you've created for yourself, perhaps because you've been fed it, because your other friends are doing it. That's what you feel is right, and perhaps you're maybe hiding your emotion within dating so many people. You don't want to be present with your emotions with that person. So it's those are fantastic tips for modern dating. And let's be honest, right? I mean, it's hard for an older generation to connect with that because it's not something that they struggled with.
Truth.
I'm sure they had their own struggles and there's no judgment there at all, but it's not something that is something fresh, and we're figuring it out as well. And we turn to our elders to ask question and advice. Perhaps not always do they, I mean, if they're supportive and loving, and maybe we'd be blessed to have that kind of support system, but not always do they have those answers. I think that's also, I'm speaking way too fast, I'm really excited. Dave, you got me excited.
Vroom. We got this.
It's like, it's for me, part of adulting, hashtag, was finding the truth that the people that I looked up to, mentors, and who I still love and respect, parents who I love and respect, but not always do they have all the answers, right? Not always do they have all the answers, and that's something that I have to figure out through my own friends, through my own mistakes, and I think when adults, well, I'm an adult now, but when people who are older than me and people I've looked up to understand that as well, and not always, because they could also say I don't know, and hearing I don't know for the first time from an adult was scary for me. Or when seeing someone who I looked up to had a flaw that was presentable to me, I was like, whoa.
It's a powerful moment, right? Like that transition when it's like, it almost like this like warp shift of perspective, and that realization that all these people that we looked up to and are all humans, like they're just people too, like in their, so I feel you.
Yeah. Right. So talking about diving deep, we dove deep in that direction. So that's really great for the person who's dating, someone who's listening right now, to take those 3 pointers of advice and to just really be in it, and to allow themselves to feel and to see what's working, and to focus on that one person, and then take the necessary steps from that place. Dave, how do you feel about always being connected with like JSwipe? Don't you? I mean, I'm sure you're working on so many other great stuff. So answer me how you feel about being branded as the JSwipe guy. But then also, I would love to hear more about what you're up to besides JSwipe, because you're up to so many incredible things. Sure.
So, I mean, as it relates to JSwipe, I love it. It's fun. I mean, At this point, it's like, as we talked about a little bit earlier, like I love connection, I love community, I love love, I love all of these things. So being an ambassador of love and like helping people connect and really, wanting to learn and hear and continue to push that further, is deeply aligned with like my truth, with my purpose, with my like. So I feel deep alignment in that. So I love it, right? And also, it continues to evolve. It's always it's always something new. And so, for example, now I'm very curious. You're passionate about global Jewish community. So not just idea of one global Jewish community, but the fact that I mentioned went to India to explore the Jewish community there, and then last weekend I was spent Shabbat in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to explore and understand the Jewish community there, and really like the similarities, the differences, the unique elements. It's just so I love that. It's also in line with what I see as what I want to continue giving myself to, and JSwipe is a powerful platform to help me, deepen that understanding of the world, Jewish experience globally and locally. So the alignment is there, and it's beautiful. The next question is, what am I?
Oh, yeah. So my next question is, what's do you have any specific projects that you're working on right now that you're excited about, and what are some of the hobbies that you do out of work?
So yeah, what I'm most excited about right now is something that it's funny because like I think about it sometimes where it's in the Jewish world, and honestly I use like shlichus or like the idea of like Chabad rabbis like on the street like rapping tefillin on people. Like when I see them, they're literally like getting high on creating this mitzvah with this other person. Like they do it because it fills them up so much, and it's so beautiful. For me, this next experience like isn't because I'm like high on life rapping this new mitzvah with people. But it's because I feel like there's like an urgent, critical need for this to exist. Ooh. And even though I struggle with like, is it my responsibility? Should I? I kind of want to live in a jungle. I want to ride around the world in a van, but like shoots, like this has got to happen. And so it's more of like a compelled feeling of responsibility for this to happen. So I'm excited about it. And it's basically this idea that over the last, let's say 4 or 5 years, I've done a lot of speaking to the Jewish communities or Jewish events or Jewish conferences either on behalf of JSwipe or the Jewish dating experience or Jewish millennials or a variety of things. But honestly, most often I'm like saddened by the lack of meaningful, critical, open and honest dialogue around the state of the modern millennial Jewish experience, at what I see as the global convenings of the Jewish world. So these organizations and networks and spaces that we believe to be the conveners of global Jewry, I call it Big Jewish. And I think most people just sort of like be like, oh yeah, they got it. Like we're good because I'm relying on the global convening bodies to like have our backs and get it done right. Like are to me not having like I'll go and it'll be on and respect, by the way, I love going and it's beautiful, so happy to be there. But it feels like a token millennial panel. It's like here's a weekend long pep rally with all of the biggest Jewish donors in the States to talk about how great we're doing as a Jewish world, and by the way, here's a 30-minute millennial pep like talk. And there's just so much more to unpack that I find so critical as it relates to the Jewish future and the current gap of a large scale Jewish millennial audience being less engaged, and it's just not having meaningful dialogue around that. So anyways, the project that comes next is called the Jewish Future Summit. It's starting with a one-day experience in New York City in 2019. And it's by design decentralized, meaning like it's not my vision. I'm asking the questions, or we're all asking the questions, but I certainly don't have the answers. But I believe in co-creation, collaboration, basically the people of inspired minds coming together to figure out what the questions are and then collectively address them as it relates to the modern and future Jewish experience. And so that's what's coming next. I'm really excited. Hopefully you'll be there, bro. I hope
that'd be amazing.
I hope you're there.
Thank you.
It feels like very, very important, to me, and I believe to the Jewish world in this moment for this type of conversation to take place. So I'm really happy about that.
That's super. That's so exciting. Are there like 2 or 3 questions that I know you don't have all the questions and definitely all the answers, but what are the 2 or 3 points or questions that you're realizing that are being overlooked by these other conferences, by the other groups that you would want to be addressed at this summit? And
let's start with broad-based framework. Like, what are the most important causes or issues or challenges taking place to us today? I'm so curious. I have no idea. Let's talk about interfaith marriage. Yeah, it's going to be a polarizing topic, but let's address it. Let's talk about it. Just everything. I'm curious about what people are struggling with, what people, are finding success, like basically insight sharing, because it's not competitive, right? It's all of us experiencing and creating experiences or community or, in our local, wherever we live. And so sharing what's working, sharing best practices, sharing tools, templates, ideas, collaborating. I'm a big believer in like through coming together as like as community, we can address, significantly more powerfully than individuals alone. Yeah.
Absolutely, fantastic. Is there anybody specific that you would hope and want to be at the summit?
It's first of all, by design, open, right? And anyone who cares in any capacity, and I hope disagreement. I want all the things should be there, God willing, because that's important. The Jewish world looks different. 5, 10, 20 years from now than it does now or than it did 50 years ago. I don't know what it will look like, but I know it will continue to look different. And so therefore I hope the space is representative of whatever that difference looks like.
Beautiful, David. And I know you're excited about some of the hobbies that you're up to.
I got you, bro.
Okay.
I don't know. This is like the first time publicly. Actually, that's not true. I story about it. So
okay. Podcast.
Your earlier question of what's something that I do.
Yeah, some hobbies you do
for fun or for like presents.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but like a couple of years, I've always been drawn to pottery. Right. Like I like the aesthetics of like little ceramics, and I love plants. As you can see, like I have a lot of them in my space, and so I'm always buying pots. I joke that like in college, I used to spend all my money on pot, and now I spend all my money on pots.
Got it. Yeah, we'll insert that. We'll insert the ding and post.
Okay, good. Anyway, so I took like a 7-week pottery wheel course that just finished last week, and I got a bunch of stuff back. Basically, I made a bunch of planters.
Beautiful.
So this is a planter, meaning there's a hole in the middle so the water can drain. This is called speckled clay.
I love it. I love the colors.
We got a half dip of some white glaze, and it's a labor of love. I experienced like all the feels going through this, like because it wasn't just one. I made a bunch, and like I put so much time and effort and energy and love into them, and like then on the second day of the second stage, it flies off the wheel and like cracks against the wall. And I'm like, oh, heartbreak. And then like the next day, I get one back that I finished, and it's beautiful and I love it. And it's like triumph. It's been a funny, experience. But these are, this is some.
Oh, that's another beautiful.
Half dip dark. Anyway, so it's been a fun, beautiful, therapeutic way of just just sort of unplugging at the end of a day of work. And
just use your hands, get back to mud and clay and create with your being. That's fantastic, man. That's really, and I mean, perhaps you now appreciate every vessel that you see.
It's so funny. I'm like always checking out pottery, or like someone will bring me like a teacup at like a restaurant. I'm like eyeing that teacup. I'm like, ooh, I see what you did there. Okay,
which backhand and like
respect. Yeah.
Strong pottery game. David, this has been so refreshing and so amazing. You're sharing your wisdom and your stories and you're being with us. Thank you so much for having me and inviting me into your home, which was really special.
Sukasa.
My man.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you for having me. #blessings. Let's reclaim that. And I look forward to seeing you on the Jewish Future Summit.
Amen. And if people want to find you, how can they find you on social?
David Yarus on Insta, Yarus. I think is my preferred. Now, honestly, now I've even started saying it's my preferred avenue of communication in terms of if I'm at an event or someone says like, oh, how can I get in touch? I'm like, it's just let's just centralize it through that. Text is of course easier, but anyways, and or JSwipe. So follow, I'm happy to, if anyone has any questions.
You have a profile on JSwipe?
So this girl Steph in my office and myself, we have community manager profiles. So when you sign up, you either get a message from Steph or I being like, hey, welcome to JSwipe. We'd love to hear your thoughts, stories, ideas, comments, critiques, tell us, etc. And so my experience is mostly hearing people's stories, requests, and funny things.
Beautiful. All right, Dave, that sounds awesome. Check out David on social media. Such great energy. And once again, thank you for having me.
Blessings, brother. Blessings. Yeah, I just learned about it.